Alright, guys, let's see what's going on with everyone's favorite game, Marathon. What the fuck? As a longtime Bungie fan, Destiny player, and even Halo fan, it has been crazy to see the levels to which Marathon's player count has plummeted. And I don't want to be too overbearing, as I know that this obsession over the player count has really dominated a lot of conversations around Marathon. And, if you're looking for that here, I want to kind of give a different perspective around this whole conversation, a gamer's perspective, because as someone who really focuses on the gameplay, I look at what the experience is offered by specific games and how well does the game provide it. Those are really my main three criteria for evaluating the game. I think that this fixation around player counts is kind of weird, and I'll explain why. I can't help but feel like all of this analyzation of player counts and everything, it comes off a bit like corpo speak, where as someone who plays the games, again, for mainly the experience, I don't really see how the player count really reflects the quality of a game. And I will give an olive branch by saying that in the whole conversation around live service games, where these games tend to live and die based on their population, I can understand the validity with discussing the plummeting player count. Because what is the point of spending $40 on a game that will inevitably die in a year or so? And that is if Bungie is unable to turn this around. If anything, I think that is the most valid point with bringing up the player count. But where I have a real problem with it is by saying that this is a reflection of the game's quality, or saying that, this game is complete ass because the player count continues to drop and etc. This was, I think, the same narrative that was encountered with High Guard. And I feel like both Marathon and High Guard are really undeserving of this, because I think that both games actually provided very unique experiences. When was the last time we had like a castle sieging FPS game? I can't think of one. Let me know in the comments. Maybe I'm missing something here, but even with Marathon, the experience of Cryo Archive, Dire Marsh, and just the overwhelmingly oppressive nature of a Bungie style extraction shooter, I think it provided a really unique experience, and it just needed some tweaks. Same thing with High Guard, and that's why I really don't like the whole conversation around purely specifically the player count. Like, if you have additional caveats or additional points other than just, posting a screenshot of the player count, that I think is like more valid. At least you're contributing to the conversation and giving a meaningful point of contention, or a point of, like, hey, good job, Bungie, you guys did this really well. And I think that, as someone who likes talking about games and tries to get something out of it, that's my personal opinion. And again, if like you like shit posting the player counts and it's like it's just a meme for you, like, more power to you. Like, I really don't care. It's just that's really my overall criticism with the discourse around Marathon and even High Guard. And I thought that it was really frustrating, because I think that with a little bit of work and some tangible feedback from the community, we could have had a really awesome game with High Guard, and potentially even Marathon now. And I think that this whole movement to try to just kill the game, strangle it in the crib, or I guess it's like a late, like, the baby has been born, so this is like an extremely late term abortion at this point. But you get my point. It's like we're trying to preemptively kill this game when we haven't really seen what the direction they're trying to go with it, or if they can even make something better. And this would be a win for everyone. Everyone has been complaining that there's no good games out, and that's what I think is kind of like paradoxical about this situation, is that you have a community of people that want these new experiences, want these new games to play, and they're preemptively destroying them because of a, I think, like, first impressions thing. But this is like a human nature conversation, and at the end of the day, you're not really going to change it. But that's just generally how I feel about the whole narrative and obsession around the player counts with both of these games. That being said, Marathon does have some extreme shortcomings, and I'll go into a few of them here. I know that there are like a lot of points of this conversation, but I'll touch on some that I feel are really important for people out there that are still on the fence about buying the game. But Marathon overall, again, is like in a paradoxical situation, and I can't help but feel like Bungie should have really learned this lesson with Trials of Osiris in Destiny 2. If you're not familiar, Trials of Osiris was a 3v3 PvP game mode in Destiny 2. It would open on Fridays and end on Sundays, and basically you would have to win 7 games in a row to go to the lighthouse, where you would get adept versions of weapons, which were just like higher tiers of these standard guns. It's like if you saw someone with an adept weapon, you know they were pretty good at the game because they had gone to the lighthouse and were able to win these 7 games. And this was a really hardcore game mode. Like, Bungie did not give a fuck if you had lag, if you had disconnects. Like, there was no forgiveness. It's like pass or fail. You get your 7 wins, you go to the lighthouse. If you don't, kick rocks. And over the years, Bungie really like leveled this down and made it to the point where um, the game became more, or the mode, excuse me, the mode of Trials of Osiris became more appealing to the casual audience. They made it so that you would only need 4 wins to go to the lighthouse. They changed the sandbox a bit. They tried to basically appeal to these casual players because they knew that they were casting a small net by making the game mode so hardcore. And this was a lesson they learned like a couple of years ago. So while I can respect Bungie's commitment to making probably one of the hardest games I've ever played, it's completely baffling that they thought that this game would exist on one game mode being an extraction shooter game mode. They've already done updates to alleviate this in the same way that they addressed Trials of Osiris by adding in like that free kit mode where basically it doesn't even play like an extraction shooter. Everyone goes in with like a scav loadout, a free loadout, and you're forced to fight that way. Sure, you can loot some stuff around the map to get an advantage. I would say that it plays more like a BR in this way. And that goes into another point where Bungie was really known for a lot of their game modes with Halo. You know, had Capture the Flag, King of the Hill, Oddball, the Mongoose, like the racing thing with the rockets. You guys know what I'm talking about. They had Horde mode. They even had Forge mode in Halo 3 where people could create maps. And it just seems like whoever was making those decisions back at Bungie, they really either inadvertently or maybe they completely understood that this was how to build a community. And Bungie has really had this problem with Destiny 2 and also even now with Marathon and attracting a community. And it baffles me how they're able to make this same mistake almost again, where, you know, the same example with Trials of Osiris. You're casting a small net, appealing to these minority of players, the extremely good players. And the same thing with Marathon. You know, extraction shooters as a genre is not very appealing to a wider audience. Arc Raiders is really the only exception, and Marathon did not even try to cater to the casuals at all with like the aggression based matchmaking. You're just thrown into lobbies that are completely kill on sight, and there's not really any wiggle room to be a player that is like less than average. Like, you really have to just dominate in Marathon, and that's really the only way to kind of be good at the game, I would say, to get like your full enjoyment out of it. It's like you have to dominate the map. That's why a popular strategy in Marathon was just going to different spawns and clearing out other teams. But, you know, ultimately my point with all this is that I think that the writing was on the wall for Bungie to kind of address these problems before the game came out. And I think that's why a lot of players are really frustrated, because they thought that there would be more to appeal to the different kind of player rather than one specific player. Right now, it just feels like Marathon caters to the sweats, the tryhards, the no-lifers, the streamers, etc. And I know you guys out there might be saying it's a skill issue or whatever, but, you know, I hate to bring this up, and break the main point I made at the beginning, but this player count immediately reflects that. The falling numbers in Trials of Osiris and the casualification of that mode, if you want to say it that way, all of these things point to the fact that, you are hemorrhaging players because they find something that is not appealing about the game. And I think this is the main thing. It is the lack of variety of engaging with the game. And to add to my point of like all the other things that Halo had before, they also had a campaign. That was a big help to me in the past with playing Halo and going into PvP, was that I could develop the skills over the course of playing through a Halo campaign. And by the time that it came time to go online and do like Team Slayer, etc., I felt more confident. It felt more like I'm just testing my skills that I had refined over the course of the campaign, and the PvP was a way to put those skills to the test against other players. You think you're hot shit killing the elites, the hunters, and the grunts. No, go against a level 50 in Halo 2 on lockout. Like, this was the test to test your gamer abilities, I guess you could say, to test how good you were in the game. And that's really non-existent in Marathon. A lot of people that were playing extraction shooters came from Arc Raiders and were again expecting a way to get into the game, but no, you kind of just get thrown into this early mission where you learn perimeter, and then after that, you're just basically thrown into PvP with other players. And on day one especially, as far as playing, I mean, those were a lot of like Destiny players that were already familiar with the Bungie gunplay, and I couldn't even imagine it was like to just be a completely like fresh player in Marathon on the first like month of the game. I mean, I saw all the posts about it. I know a lot of people in the community were having problems with the extreme difficulty, and I think this has only persisted as the season goes on. I have actually not been playing for a couple of weeks, although I have gotten 300 hours out of the game, so I think I've put in like a lot of miles into it and can really understand enough to kind of talk about it. Overall, the lack of ways to engage with the game other than basically going into a dick blender where you're rolling the dice of losing your gear that you have spent hours of accumulating, I think that is a core problem with the game. And as far as solutions, I'm not really sure what can be done at this point because, adding a campaign post-launch, maybe that would help a bit, but I just feel like that was something where first impressions truly do matter. Like, as much as I would want it to work, I just don't think people hearing that a new campaign is going to bring people back. I would say maybe like a horde mode, or just adding in, go full send on adding in those other game modes like free kit. Like, I think they should go back to how they made different game modes for Halo. I think what Bungie is really good at is giving the sandbox of like the guns feeling good, the maps looking good, the AI being pretty good. They give you all these tools to work with and you just want to play them in different ways. I think that's why Forge mode was so successful with Halo and why there was a huge community behind that, is because people just generally had fun playing the game. They had fun using the gravity hammer, shooting the BRs, driving around on the mongooses. It's just, with Marathon, I feel like the answer to their current problems is to just give more ways for people to play the game. And I know Bungie might not want to hear that because there's been a lot of talk of this being like kind of a Bungie fighting the gaming community with like a chip on their shoulder, saying that they can still do it. And I think that really shows through their commitment in giving us this extremely hard game. I think Bungie really boiled down what it takes to make that, and I think they've really succeeded. Like, they set out on what they were trying to do, but ultimately the gaming market is in a different place than it was when this game would have popped off, like maybe 5 to 10 years ago. Like, look at the popularity of cozy games and all of these other games that have been coming out now that have been extremely popular. The player counts show that there is a huge market for casual gamers. And, as much as I hate to admit that as someone who enjoyed the more competitive aspects of Marathon, as much as I wasn't really able to even compete at that level, I appreciated Marathon for trying to uh, give us a competitive game. If anti-cheat was working pretty well, that would be really awesome. But that's like another reason why these uber competitive games just can't really work right now. It's like technology has advanced so far where even the state of a competitive game, it can't be preserved unless you're doing like lands or something. But yeah, that's really overall where this rant is going, is that um, even as someone who really didn't like the free kit mode, I can't help but acknowledge that this would be the way to get players back, or maybe even offer like the first 10 to 15, 20 levels of Marathon. That's another thing I'll give Bungie credit to, is that the progression for like the first 100 levels through the game feels like awesome. Even if you're losing, it's like you're just drowning in rewards, and so your dopamine, like if you're a casual player, just receiving free shit, I'm sure, just feels really awesome. So I think they did a good job with like alleviating the learning curve. But once you get through that first 100 levels, you're just pretty much getting your dick beat in to just get like dust coughed on you by the vendors at that point. Like you're not really getting anything. So yeah, overall, those are my general thoughts on the game. Maybe I had missed a specific topic, but I just kind of wanted to hone in on focus on really what I think the main issue with the game is. So if you disagree, or maybe you have other points of contention, feel free to leave it in the comments. I really want this channel to just be about talking about games, and I want to just avoid like kind of like the clickbaity topics, like the player count was a huge thing, because I just don't think I know, me personally, I don't care about stuff like that. Like I want to talk about the merits of the game, what I think is good, what I think is bad, what I think other people might not like about it. And ultimately that's how I feel about Marathon, is that if you're a Bungie fan and you're looking for a really sweaty experience, then Marathon is the game for you right now. If you're a casual and you don't want to spend $40 on a game that you don't know if you're going to like, then I wouldn't, personally. It's just not worth it, especially with my prior point of the game, like not knowing the future of the game. There's just no reason to invest the money, and that's really the hard part of it. But yeah, overall, let me know what you think about the video in the comments, and please consider liking and subscribing. I've been playing a lot of DayZ for the first time in 2026 actually, so I'm going to be putting out some videos about DayZ in the future, so expect that. But if you made it this far, please take care and be safe.